All right, hey everyone. It is Tuesday. It's time for today's Facebook Live. So this is a topic that is a little bit different than the normal content, but equally or possibly more important than what we normally talk about here. So a lot of the time I teach about, how to get yourself into a dealing job. This conversation is more about once you actually work in a poker room, particularly talking about how to get the players at the table to really like you, therefore tip you more. But also it goes a little bit deeper than that too. So, the thing that casinos really don't talk about is how they get a lot of people to go to their casino by creating games. Poker's not any different, where there's a lot of appeal. The senses are stimulated in the ways that create habits for people. And the game of poker has a really nice balanced dynamic there where even if you go in with the worst of it, you can still win. The feeling of winning feels really good. And, more than that though, you're usually, when you're playing poker, you're at a beautiful table. The cards, getting the cards in your hand feels good. There's all these things that go into it, right? But there's something else about a poker room and casino that really stands out, especially when you think about the regulars and why they're there. There are people who, in many cases now, we've got our pros that come all the time. And for anyone that's worked in a poker room, the pros, a lot of the time, the ones that play cash game all the time, they probably make some decent money, but they don't necessarily crush it, right? But nonetheless, there's pros that come there all the time to make money. But there's a lot of people that come to the poker room that are not making money, and yet they come back day after day after day. I used to puzzle over this, especially when I was a supervisor in South Florida. I used to think to myself, the people that are coming to play every single day that are the regulars, and we had one of the places I was at was like a 28, 29 table room, and there's a lot of tables that were in action too. Like I was in one 29 table poker room that maybe only had 8 games going a day, and I was at another one that would get up to fill the room sometimes. And it's like these same people would come in and play poker day after day after day and lose and still come back. It is not a secret, but it's also not generally talked about why. The people that come in over and over and over again, yes, some of them are coming to get the rush of money, and that's where our mind thinks about or goes to a lot. But a lot of people that come in, they're there because when you go to a casino and you go to a poker room, if you understand the game of poker well enough to have a little bit of respect from the people around you, you get automatic, guaranteed social interaction. The dealer is going to interact with you. It's guaranteed. The players at the table are going to interact with you, and it's about something. It makes it a lot easier to create social interaction. And at the end of the day, people that spend a lot of their time playing poker and losing at poker, they're getting something that's relatively valuable to them. Now, they could be getting it from somewhere else too, but they choose to get it from poker, and that's social interaction. It's connection with people. It's the feeling of getting to interact with people without bringing all of the normal stuff that they get in their interactions in regular life into it. Some people, they have a tough time having social interaction without experiencing pain. And so at the casino, they can put all that stuff aside. Money will come and go, but they get social interaction and they don't have to experience that stuff. And so what do you do as a dealer once you realize that, in order to create a better experience for them and really get them to like you? The thing that you do is you realize where a lot of them are coming from. You don't ever talk about it openly. You don't ever say, I can see that you're lonely, for instance, right? You never talk about that stuff. You just give a shit about them. You care about them. If you let yourself care about the people at that table, which can be hard sometimes, let them say things that they want to say and listen to them. Talk to them about things that are important to them. And you don't do this during hands, right? it's hard as a dealer to have these types of interactions with people while there's action going on, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for it. Little interactions here and there where they feel like you genuinely care, they go a really long way with a lot of the people that come in here. And this is not everybody that's there for this, but every single poker table has people that just want social interaction at the end of the day. And that ability for you as a dealer, as a supervisor too, I mean, I was a supervisor for a long time. I get to walk around the room. I don't have to focus 100% on the hand. In between hands, I could talk to a player, especially if I've had some kind of an interaction with them in the past. There's a lot of other positions in poker rooms too, such as chip runner, brush, the person at the front of the room, even cashiers, stuff like this. Like, you can really find opportunities to create little bits of connection with people that can go so far. And I mean, honestly, the more authentic it is, the better. But at the same time, either way, if you're able to do it authentically or not, these are people that are going to really look forward to you coming to the table to deal, and they're people that are going to tip you more almost all the time if you give them that thing that they want. If they feel like they matter to you on that little level, and you can do it to whatever degree you want. You know, be careful, because if you don't put any boundaries in there, you might end up with them really, really wanting to interact with you. But it is something that casinos generally don't talk about. They don't talk about how the people that are there, some of them are lonely, some of them want social interaction, some of them want that automatic guaranteed feeling of having somebody to talk to without all the stuff that goes with it. You know, there's men that are there who they leave home, they might leave their wife at home and come because the interaction that they get with them has parts of it that are not smooth anymore, and they don't know how to fix it. And so they're looking for more fulfilling social interaction, even if it's just for like 2 hours at a poker table. There's so much of that all the time in the poker room, and realizing that can be one of the most valuable things that you can teach yourself as a poker dealer or any other poker employee. It's as simple as listening sometimes. It's as simple as not thinking of it just in terms of poker in the game of poker, right? You always want to enforce the rules 100% accurately. And again, I want to be super clear about this. If you're just listening, do not ever tell somebody that they seem lonely or acknowledge that they're in the poker room just looking for connection, right? That's going to make them uncomfortable. But giving them that interaction won't. Giving them that interaction where you're listening to them, you're smiling, you make them feel good about anything that they have to say. Even if it's stuff that's like over the line, maybe instead of shutting them down, and some of the people that are in this group that I know personally are very good at that, because you kind of have to develop that thick skin, right? But instead of shutting them down over something they say that's honestly stupid, maybe redirect them, right? Like if they say something that's an unpopular social opinion, they just want to feel connection with people, but they don't know how. And that's the key. They don't know how to get it in their regular life. And so they're coming somewhere where it's more automatic. So redirect them. Maybe if you know how, teach them a little bit. Like if somebody says, I don't understand how anybody can, and like we try to avoid politics at the table, right? But people can't stop themselves. I don't understand how anybody can like Trump, or I don't understand how anybody can like Democrats. Something like that, maybe redirect them a little bit by saying, are you sure that's what you mean, right? Are you sure you don't mean, and then whatever it is that you think is more in line. Are you sure you don't mean you do see how it can be that way and you just wish it wasn't? These little things, but if you do it with a smile and with care about the fact that they're saying something without truly creating more disconnection, I have seen this magic happen before. There's a few dealers in particular that stand out, and their tips are always better. And more importantly, they have a better experience as a poker dealer. They're able to be there for longer. Excuse me. Now, keep in mind, these people also tend not to go too deep with poker players because a lot of the people that are in casinos that are experiencing this, they will kind of suck you into their world if you let them, right? And as I've just said, their world can be lonely, and it can have dynamics and social dynamics with other people that are unhealthy that they don't realize because they've never learned. That's one thing too that's commonly misunderstood. People who have these social dynamics where they create disconnection with other people, a lot of us view people in those situations as stupid or uneducated or bad at being friendly or whatever it is. Most of the time though, possibly all the time, it's just because they've never learned how. They've never learned how to create positive social interactions with people in their regular life. Again, that a lot of the time is why some of the people that come to the poker room are there, because they get that and it's automatic, and then they can create connection with other people over poker, where they're all on the same page about it, they're talking about poker, and then they try to interject other things here and there. And so that's something that I felt was important to kind of talk through and talk about, because this is a job for a lot of people. It pays the bills, but it's also, in most cases, somewhere that a poker dealer, for instance, will spend 30 something hours a week, right? And understanding what's around you for the majority of your time can make a huge difference. There's so many people that I've seen that have become dealers that have just been very laser focused on making money, getting more hands out, making money. And what they end up doing is they end up just like completely shutting themselves off to the people around them when they're in the poker room as a dealer. Now, I'm not telling you not to do that if that's your thing, but there is the opportunity for you to connect with the people that are around you all the time and create a better experience for yourself. Because dealing is one of those things that while you're learning how to deal and you're new in dealing, it can be really fun and exciting, but then eventually you've learned most of what you have to do. The challenge isn't there anymore, and it ends up becoming this repetitive thing. And if part of what you learned was how to disconnect from everybody and not let anybody in and not go in with anybody else, there's not a lot that's left for you, especially if you're the type of person that needs positivity around you, or you're the type of person who needs inspiration around you. Like, poker players don't usually provide much of that. It's a competitive environment. It's a competitive sport to begin with. So, people that come to, the bottom line is a lot of people that come to casinos, yes, they're there because they want to make money, but maybe they don't even realize it. They come to casinos, many people, because they want more automatic social interaction. And a poker table, it can be full of that. And if you've been a dealer, as I talk through this, you're probably picturing specific people. Some of them might be kind of like, oh man, like I can't even imagine wanting to create interaction and give this person that social interaction, but it can really, really be worth it. Honestly, you might make an impact on their life. And there's not many opportunities in life where you can truly impact somebody to the point where instead of tipping you $5 a hand as like a really good thing, they might give you like a car or something like that. But I know plenty of examples of poker dealers who have taken that connection to the next level and met people in their lives who have helped them in situations where they really needed it, and so on. So just kind of being open to that and being more aware of that, I think there's a lot of value there. I really do. So yeah, that's it. That's the secret. The secret is understanding why the people that are there and understanding what it is to get to them. Right now I kind of wish that I had somebody asking questions or somebody jumping on here and kind of turning this into more of a conversation so that I could hear an example of somebody and kind of talk it through. I can give an example too for myself. There was one poker player that I was dealing to that I had known her as a supervisor, and then when I went to the Hard Rock as a dealer, she was at my table. Now, as a supervisor, I had known her but never really interacted with her too much, because for me as a supervisor, I honestly made the mistake of not doing enough of this with the players. I did this with the people that worked there. I made sure that the people that worked there were always taken care of and got what they needed. But as a poker player, so I was dealing to her, and she was the type who she just absolutely would blame the dealer super hard anytime anything didn't go her way. And oh, here we go, this dealer's here again, blah 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 blah, right? And the thing that I did was, she clearly doesn't understand, in this case, how to have positive social interactions with people. Part of the reason that she comes to play poker is because she doesn't get positive social interactions elsewhere. So she kind of seemed to come to escape. Now, this is an assessment I made, but it's what I believe. So the thing that I did was I just kept drilling it into her, no matter how much she would talk me down. Listen, I know you love me. I know you love me. You're not going to be able to hide it. She'd be like, no, you're the worst. You're always dealing in bad cards. I'd be like, all I can hear is that you love me. Is that what you're saying? You love me? Oh, I hear that you love me. And it would start to bring out little smiles. She started to get something that she has trouble getting, because she needed somebody, and I feel like I understood this. She needed somebody that was very strong and able to take the blows and they bounce off, right? Like, you're bad, you suck, you're the worst, right? And I'm just like taking that and it's deflecting off me. And I'm just like, you love me. I know you love me. And something like that can really be powerful. And so eventually she started tipping me more than she tipped anybody else, because I kept doing that with her and she thought it was a fun little game. She was getting a type of social interaction she liked. What she used to do with me before that is she would create little negative conversations about me with the other players. That's still her getting that type of connection. And maybe now after you've had this conversation, the next time you're in a poker room, or after you've heard this little monologue, the next time you're in a poker room, you'll start to analyze people a little bit more like I do, where you're seeing like, who is here for a connection? Where are they getting it? Every time a poker player opens their mouth, is it about poker or is it about social, right? What's going on for everybody there? I know for me, there have definitely been times that I've played poker just to be around people. I can think of times that I've traveled and I've been alone. When I travel and I'm alone, I know for sure I'm going to get social interaction in the poker room. Now, I also love playing the game of poker, and I love it from a mathematical and money standpoint too. I love it from a logical standpoint. I love it from a psychological standpoint. But that being said, I can guarantee you there have been times where I've gone to play the game that I'm comfortable with just because I wanted social interaction. And there's a lot of people at the table that are just like that. It's one of the most valuable things I feel like I could share with you. Understanding that and understanding what to do with it, super, super valuable. And I would even encourage you, as a dealer or as someone that works in a poker room, experiment, try, right? Don't be afraid to fail and not give somebody connection, not give somebody social interaction that they want. You do want to cap it and be careful, but still try. Like, you could always fix it later. That's my opinion. Yes, some people would say, well, if you do this, you'll get fired. Like, yeah, I mean, understand the scope of how to talk to people, right? I often say, in order to create camaraderie with people, give them shit, right? But there's a line. You don't cross the line when you're giving somebody shit. Just like in this case, there's a line. You don't want to try to create connection. Like I said, talk about the fact that they're lonely, or say something about their life that's more personal than they want shared with everybody. Be very aware of that, but still experiment a little bit with a cap on what you're willing to do, and try, because this can be a skill that you can gain, and this is good for anything in life as well. So I feel like that's my little 20-minute conversation about how to get regulars to like you. It's understanding why they're there, right? If they're a poker player and they're just there to make money and they don't want any social, don't give them any social, right? If they're there for social interaction, they're there for the automatic connection that the poker room can provide, notice it and without interrupting the game at all and without compromising the integrity of the game at all, do little things that can make a difference. You also have opportunities when you're going to break or something like that. If somebody said something that you want to be able to like fully respond to on your way to break, a lot of the time, as long as they're not in a hand, you can take that like minute or two and share a piece of conversation with them. Oh, cool. I see a couple of comments here. Ed says, to become a part-time dealer at a non-Vegas casino, is getting, winning, and audition enough, or does one need a certification? Ed, that's a great question. There are some poker rooms that do require certification, but in my experience talking to a lot of poker rooms, they just care that you can deal. So they do not need a certification. And I have seen many people get hired without ever formally going to school for being a dealer. It is definitely more difficult to get a poker dealing job and pass an audition without having gone to school. But maybe if you partially went to school, or if you learned through True Poker Dealer and you played a lot of poker or something like that, and you can talk them into giving you an audition, you should be fine. But find out from them ahead of time. But that being said, don't like tell them, hey, I don't have a certification at that particular room. I would have someone else call and ask on their behalf, as if they were the ones that were trying to do that, so that you stayed under the radar with it, right? And then you got to figure out how to play it from there. But no, many rooms, and I'm thinking like in South Florida, for example, because I spent a lot of time here, it's maybe one or two of the rooms down here actually want a certification, or they want to know that you worked as a dealer somewhere. Also, a lot of the time what you'll see someone that gets a job in a poker room as one of the other positions that doesn't pay as much as dealer, and then they get trained there and they never get a formal certification either. So yeah, it's not about that. But thank you for that question. Jared asked, I like the "you love me, don't you" technique. I'll be using this one. I love interacting with my players for sure. I deal a club cash game, regular circle of 40 players that rotate, and I've already created a clique that will wait for my something to deal over the other dealer. And even have a couple players that always want the 10 or 1C just so they can talk easier between hands with me. I mean, I love that comment. It's dead on for what the experience of the regular is, right? Like there's so many regulars that get really excited to get the seats right next to the dealer if you have dealers that get this concept. Because as I'm sitting here and I'm dealing, right, you know, I can have a deck in hand and I can have action over here and I can talk like this, like a little bit here and there if this player is not in the hand. You know, they know that I'm not cheating with them because they don't have cards. And this player loves it. They love that interaction. They came somewhere to play a game and they get to hear a little commentary. It's beautiful. I always love when my friends are in those seats too. It's a really fun thing. So thank you for that comment. Absolutely loved that insight too. The 10 and the 1 seat is the best when you have dealers that get it, especially at when, like you said, there's a smaller rotation of people, right? It's smaller rooms, less dealers. That means that you see the same dealers more frequently. That means that you create more of that with them. And it can be an amazing, beautiful thing. So that was great. Oh, it says that there's 3 comments. I want to see, how come I don't see the third? I only see 2 comments here. It says that there's 3 comments, so I want to really quickly try to see what I'm missing. How do you handle missed blinds or player moves seat and reposting blinds? This is 22 minutes ago, so I apologize. I didn't see that question. How do you handle missed blinds or player moving seat and reposting blinds? So first, this is unique room by room. The thing that I'm used to when it comes to, missed blinds. So we're going to change topics for a minute to answer a question that was asked a little bit earlier. Let me see. So I don't actually have any missed blind buttons in this bank, but that's okay because we got these wonderful clear spacers. So first, when a player is supposed to be the big blind, and during that hand they're not at their seat, and therefore I can't deal them in. Which in some rooms you can if you know for sure that they're going to be there. But let's pretend that that's not the case. So when a player is not at their seat, as soon as they miss their big blind, you give them a miss blind button. It is weird that this question does not show up in the main chat, but so they get a miss blind button, and then the next hand they're going to miss their small blind. Now, on the very next hand, when they have a miss blind button, in many circumstances, they're able to buy the button if they want, if they come back in the very next hand. It's a whole separate topic. But now they have a missed blind button, and whenever they come back to the table, their two options basically are, option one, they can post a dead small blind and a dead small blind that goes in the center and a big blind that goes in front of them. You know what? Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on this, so I'll do a quick little explanation and I'll do a video on this later. But let's see. So let's say that we're playing a 5-5 game, and I'll just give this player a lot of chips. I'm saying 5-5 because this is just what I have for chips in front of me right now. I wasn't thinking this was going to be a demo today. Not a problem, though. Happy to do it. So if this player had a miss blind button, and we'll say that the dealer button is in this seat over here. So this player over here, this player over here is not on the button because you can't come back on the button. A lot of rooms make it so it's impossible anyway, but you can't come back on the button and post blinds ever. So this player here would have to post a $5 big blind, and in a 5-5 game, which is a little bit less common, but it still does exist, it would also have to post a $5 small blind. And rooms that allow straddling will sometimes allow this player to just straddle in for 10, which a lot of the time they take that option, but this is how it would go. And I assume, since you're a dealer, that this isn't the part of it that you want to know. But nonetheless, you asked the question, so I'm trying to be somewhat thorough for the people that don't know this. So they can post this anytime, and then when that happens, they also throw their miss blind button out, which you can always use these clear spacers if you run out of blind buttons. You just have to remember what they are. You have to communicate with the dealer after you, etc. But these work great. I think you guys can see this, yeah. So let's now say that, so this is from any position. They would post a big and a dead small. This goes right to the pot, big and a dead small from any position, except they can't do the dealer button. And from the small blind, if they only miss one hand, they might instead just buy the button. And if they end up waiting until it goes around and it's their natural big blind position, then they just post a big blind and they don't have to put the dead small. Missing that one orbit is fine. And then a similar question that you're asked that goes along with that is, well, what happens if the player wants to move seats? When do they have to post a big blind? When do they not? So when a player is moving seats across the table to go to an open seat, there's different rules for this. The rule that I typically see, and I see people go with in order to determine whether or not somebody has to post, is if it's based on the number of players that they skip. So if somebody skips 3 or more players, so say that they're the button, right? And let's see, I'm going to make a small representation of this here. So that'll be a chip stack, that'll be a chip stack, that'll be a chip stack. I didn't really set the camera up great for this. Let's see, this over here, okay. This will be a chip stack, this will be a chip stack, this will be a chip stack, and I'll take this to be a chip stack here. All right, so the button is right in this seat here. And if this player right here wants to leave the button, and they wanted to go and sit, say that there's an open seat right here, they go sit in this open seat. Now in this case, they do not need to post anything. Why? Because they're going into worst position, right? Now, the small blind's here, the big blind's here, and they only have 2 hands before they have to post a big blind. So they're going in an unfavorable direction, so they don't have to post anything. This player here, when they move from the button, that's always going to be the case. But let's say it's the other way around, okay? Let's now say that this seat's open right here, and this player right here wants to skip 1, 2, 3 players and go away from the big blind that they were going to get in the following hand after this one. Well, now they've skipped 3 players. They have to post. You as the dealer have to tell them they only post a big blind. They did not miss a small blind, so they do not post a small blind. By the way, posting a small blind, if you miss just your small blind, is something I'll talk about in a moment. So in this case, this player who skipped 3 players has to post. There are some rooms that do it if you skip 2 players. So there's no right or wrong way to do that. And if I'm being honest, since I've worked at rooms that have required you to skip 3 before you post or required you to skip 2 before you post, I don't remember what's more common here. I know that they're both options that poker rooms go with at times. Let me see here. So how do you handle missed blinds or player moving seat and reposting blinds? Yeah. So the only other piece would be the small blind. If a player misses only their small blind, I'll put some chips here. So let's say that, can you see all these? Yes, we can. So let's say that it's small blind, big blind, but this player gets up. Now we only have a big blind. This player gets a miss small blind button. If you have a miss small blind button, which almost every poker room will, you give them a miss small blind, and then the next hand, the button is probably going to still go in front of them. Some casinos keep it here, but they've missed their small blind at this point. Actually, nowadays I think it's more common to keep the button in front of a live player. That's a separate conversation. Either way, the hand following the one that they miss, they're going to come back, right? The hand, in that hand, if they come back, they're possibly going to be able to play. That's a complicated fixing the blinds situation. And I can go over all these at some point if somebody wants me to. I tend to wait until I get asked a specific question, by the way. So let me see. I want to keep this clear. So I'm going to go back and just re-demo this for a moment. All right. So the button's here. This is a small blind. This is a big blind. Okay. This player does not pay their small blind. They get up from the table. Their chips are still here. They get up from the table. They get a missed small blind button. Okay. The next hand, this player is a small blind. Okay. This player is a big blind. And the button will either be here or here, depending on the casino. We'll say that it's here just to keep it simple. If this player were to come back right now, technically they could buy the button. If the button was here, according to the casino, they would not be able to play. Either way, we'll pretend that they missed this hand, and then the button goes over here. And then the next hand, it's small blind here, big blind here. This player, if they want to play, they would have to post a dead small blind that is not a part of their bet. All right. Now, the only other piece to this that's worth noting here is we're back to our original example. Let's make a little bit of room here. Here's the dealer button. This player right here, that is the small blind, if they decide to get up from the table and move to this seat, take their chips and move to this seat, they are able to go to this seat and pay their small blind live in some casinos if it's the exact same hand that they were supposed to pay their small blind in small blind position. Some casinos will allow this to be live. Other casinos will make it be dead. They created the rule of allowing it to be live because it doesn't actually benefit the player to keep it live here because they're actually choosing to pass up on the button. I mean, some players will say, hey, I'd like to move there, but I want to wait until my button goes by. And the casino will usually honor that for a couple of hands. And even if a new player gets into the table, they'll make them wait. So if a player wants to move right away, it doesn't hurt anything realistically to allow them to post a small blind live in front of them right there. So that's that scenario too. Curious if that was a satisfying answer for what you were trying to ask. Given that you're somebody that seems to deal a decent amount, I'm wondering what you're used to and what's missing for you so that I can fill in the rest of those gaps. But let's see, what else is there? Were there any other questions? No. Well, given that there's no more questions, I do want to say thank you to everybody for watching. This is one of the topics, speaking about what an experience is like for regulars and why people come into the casino. Especially, this is one of those topics that's really more meaningful to me. I have done some entrepreneur work in that field, and there's just so much to be said there. But thank you guys all for watching, and happy Tuesday.